The next chapter, Shrouding, the Imam, he says their shrouding is a communal obligation, much like their washing. It is an obligatory right of Allah and a right of the deceased, and it is comprised of one garment, which does not show the skin and completely covers them. So, describing the nature of the garment or the kafan that will be used, it has to be large enough that it will cover them entirely, so covering the head all the way to the feet, and the thickness of the material has to be such that you cannot see the skin. So you don't want to be using a very thin material here, but something thick enough that would cover the skin or its color from being seen. It's recommended to shroud a man with 3 white cotton shrouds. 3, and any more is disliked. Any more meaning 4, 5, or 6, or beyond that would be considered waste and abundance. After being fumed with fragrance, oud, or like a perfume of types, they are laid on top of each other. So now, what you do with these white cotton garments, if you will, you lay them on top of each other. The finest of them is fixed as the outside layer. So basically, the highest quality of those pieces of fabric or garment, they're laid down first, as this will become the outside, the outer layer of the shroud. And then between the layers, you put hunult, which is a type of perfume. It's a specific mix that's used just for shrouding. Hunult is not something that you find the living wearing. It's something made specifically for this case. So that is put on the first. Then the second garment is placed on top of that, another layer of this perfume, hanut, and then the third and final garment is placed on top, and then the deceased is placed on the garments. Now, to begin the wrapping process, Imam al-Ba'li, he says, the left side of the innermost shroud is brought to their right side, and then the right is brought to the left. So you begin here taking the left side of the shroud and drawing it over onto the right side. And then you take the right side of the shroud and draw it across the body, essentially to the left. This is much like when you are making Hajj or Umrah, and in a state of Ihram, the men, they wear the izar, and they wear the ridat, which is the top portion. So the izar is worn in the same fashion, where you take the left side and you draw it across the right, and then you take the right side and draw it across the left. So the next time you're in ihram as men and you're wearing these shrouds, is basically what they are, you should be reminded here of your burial shroud. And that's a link that you can make, or a connection here. So then the second and the third are done in the same fashion. The left side of the shroud is brought to the right side is crossed over the body to the left, and the third one is done similarly. You're also going to be careful about the excess. It's okay to have excess material to make sure you cover the head and the feet, making the excess closest to the head. That way, when you have finished wrapping all 3 garments, you gather them together and you tie them closed. And then this tie will be undone when you place the body later, when you place the body in the grave. So that's for the men. As for the women, Imam al-Ba'li says 5 garments are recommended for women and hermaphrodites. Hermaphrodite being someone who's unable to distinguish their gender. A natural occurrence, not something surgical. So someone that is born with both male and female genitalia, one gender is not preponderant over the other. And so the woman and this hermaphrodite are recommended. It's recommended that they are to wear or be dressed with 5 garments. The izar, which is the lower skirt-like garment, which covers from the waist down. This is put on first, followed by the qamis. The qamis is a long floor-length gown with long sleeves, often called abaya or something of that nature. This is worn next, followed by the khimar, which is a veil that covers the head and is it's wrapped around under the chin. And after that, you have the 2 shrouds, much like the men's shrouds. For young girls, a qamis and 2 shrouds are recommended, a little bit less than that of a grown woman. For boys, 1 garment is recommended. 3 are permissible, unless their inheritors are not of legal capacity. So for a young boy, one garment being the sunnah, three being permissible, unless the inheritors are young. And the reason for this is because if the inheritors are too young, not of legal capacity, they will not be able to intelligently forego a portion of their inheritance or rationally decide that they want to forego a portion of the inheritance in order to purchase extra shrouds for the deceased. And so if this is the case, then the boy must be buried in one garment alone. That way the inheritance of his young inheritors was not harmed in any way.